In verse 25, first, like Simeon, desire to live the Spirit-filled life God offers. Now notice what it says in verse 25. And behold, there was a man in Jerusalem whose name was Simeon, and this man was just and devout, waiting for the consolation of Israel. Look at the ending. And the Holy Spirit was upon him. The Holy Spirit was upon him. Now, that is a profound statement. Do you truly want to be full of, overflowing with, and controlled by the Holy Spirit? That's the first question. Are you really inviting His presence to control your heart and life every day? Do you want Him? Are you inviting Him? Number 3, do you seek to rely on Him to lead and guide you through life? By the way, every one of those are yes or no questions. Not kind of. Either this moment, you're seeking to be filled, controlled, and overflowed by the God of the universe through His Spirit, or you're not. Either this moment, you're seeking Him to dominate in your life, or He's not even in the equation. Either this moment, you're saying, like Jesus, Luke 22, not my will, but thine be done. Or you're not. There's no middle ground. It's not kind of. Look back at verse 25. Simeon desired to live the Spirit-filled life God offers. How do I know that? Because the Holy Spirit was on him. The Holy Spirit dominates our life by invitation. As Paul put it this way, I beseech you therefore, brethren, born-again people, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies as this dwelling place where God is in control. So it's a choice. But secondly, Simeon not only had this Spirit-filled life, Simeon, secondly, sought the Spirit-illumined life. It's wonderful to have the Holy Spirit fill us, but look, like Simeon, seek the Spirit-illumined life. Verse 26, and it had been revealed to him by the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit is a revealer. When people tragically, one of the worst things I hear people say, keep saying it, but it's one of the worst things I hear them say is, I don't get anything out of the Bible. I don't get anything out of it. It doesn't make any sense to me. That's tragic. Do you know why? If they're truly saved, the author lives inside of them. And as someone that's written books, if people have any questions about my books, I'm all over it and I explain it to them. And it's wonderful. I enjoy it immensely. And I travel all over and teach what I've written down. Can you imagine how much the author of this book wants every one of us in whom he lives to understand what he's saying? That's what the Spirit-illumined life is about. Simeon knew what God wanted him to do in life. Simeon was confident that the Lord had a plan. Simeon rested in the faith that God's will for his life was what he wanted, and that led him to a calm assurance. Is that what your life's like? Do you have a calm assurance that you know beyond a shadow of doubt that you are living and walking and going through life in God's will? There's no better way to live. I just had a big discussion with someone, and they were talking about all the challenges of being in the ministry, because being in the ministry is much like being a surgeon working on the front lines with a lot of diseased people, that you're always, you're kind of exposed to everything. And when you're in the ministry, you're exposed to all the evils of life, because that's when people want you. When their life is falling apart, when their family's falling apart, when their emotions and mind and finances and morals are all falling apart, that's when they're really interested. And dying and breaking up and divorcing and everything else. And so you're constantly under the pressure of all that, which on top of that, there's the whole spiritual warfare dimension we've been looking at. And they said to me, why would you do that? For decade after decade, I said, It's only calling of God. Because it's not something you just kind of say, I love sailing, or I love, shopping. No, it's, as Paul said, he said, I bear the burden of the churches. In fact, when I was, in March, when I was talking to John MacArthur, my pastor mentor that I worked with for a few years, he looked at me and he said something very interesting. He said, do you feel it? And I said, if what you're talking about is what I'm thinking, yes, I feel it. He said, do you feel the hourglass burden of the ministry? He said, I work my entire week to get ready to speak on Sunday, and I get done with it, and they turn the hourglass over, and the sand is running down, and I have to be ready again. He said, for 50 years, I have never been out from under that burden of the ministry. I said, well, it's only been 33 for me, but I do feel that burden. But that's knowing God's will for your life. It's a burden to be married because you have a responsibility. It's a burden to raise children. You have a responsibility. It's a burden to fulfill your obligations to your employer because you have, and it's a burden to fulfill your calling to God. But it's a precious burden, as Simeon said. Have you asked the Lord to illumine His Word and open your eyes to see what He's planned for your life? The greatest joy in life comes from knowing and doing God's will for your life.